Welcome to the Explainer. So today we're going to dig into the history of an Apple product you've probably never even heard of. But believe it or not, this thing was a powerhouse for over 2 decades. And then it just vanished. I know, right? It's kind of hard to imagine in today's world of simple apps and cloud everything. But yep, Apple once sold a really serious professional grade server operating system. I mean, this was the backbone for all sorts of places, from creative studios to entire school districts. So let's get into how this whole thing even started. Okay, let's dive in. We're going to start right at the beginning because you got to understand what made this server OS so unique right from the very start. Okay, so this was way more than just your standard macOS with a few extra buttons toggled on. No, this was a completely separate operating system. It was built on this open source core called Darwin and was designed to do all the heavy lifting. Running email servers, hosting websites, or managing a whole computer lab for a school. And here's where it gets really interesting. The server OS, it wasn't some little side project. No way. It was actually central to Apple's whole strategy back then. It was built on the same super powerful foundation that Steve Jobs brought over with him from Next. And get this, it was actually released before the consumer version of macOS X that we all know and use today. That's how important it was. So, for about a decade, macOS X Server was just on a roll. I mean, every single new version just kept adding more power, more pro-level features. It was a really, really exciting time for this product. This timeline really gives you a feel for just how fast things were moving. When the Tiger version came out, Apple threw in tools like iChat Server for totally secure private messaging, and this other thing called Xgrid. Xgrid was amazing. It let you link a whole bunch of Macs together to basically create your own little supercomputer for heavy-duty stuff like video rendering. By the time we get to Snow Leopard, man, it was just a beast of an OS. Fully 64-bit and absolutely packed with features. I mean, just look at everything it could do. You could literally take a powerful Mac Pro and turn it into the central hub for an entire creative agency or small company. We're talking managing user accounts, file sharing, hosting a collaborative wiki for your whole team. It could even automate stuff like producing a podcast. It even came with Web Objects, which was the super sophisticated tool for building really complex, data-driven websites. The whole shebang. Yeah, that price tag pretty much tells you exactly who this was for. At almost $500. And keep in mind, earlier versions were even more expensive. This was definitely not for the average person. This was a serious tool for organizations that needed a really powerful server, but one that was still, relatively easy to manage compared to the other stuff out there. But then 2011 happened, and everything changed. That incredible run that the server OS was on, it came to a complete screeching halt. And this wasn't just some minor update. Apple completely rethought what a server should even be. So why the huge sudden pivot? Well, think about it. By 2011, Apple's entire world had been turned upside down by the iPhone and the App Store. Their focus shifted dramatically towards consumers, and that whole professional server market suddenly felt like a pretty small niche. On top of that, you had the rise of cloud services, which meant fewer and fewer small businesses even needed to run their own physical servers and more. And this slide just says it all, doesn't it? That big, expensive physical box with the operating system inside? Gone. Instead, you could now just buy a simple app from the Mac App Store for a tiny fraction of the price and install it right on top of any Mac you owned. Now, on the one hand, this was kind of cool. It made server tools available to way more people. But for the serious IT pros, the people who really depended on all those advanced features, this was a huge, blaring signal that things were heading in the wrong direction. So, after it became just an app, the server product started this long, slow decline. Instead of getting cool new features with each update, it felt like every new version actually had less than the one before it. 2018, that was the year things really fell apart. A new version came out that just stripped out so many of the most important features. Things like the mail server, the wiki, the VPN tools, all gone. The product was just a shadow of its former self. And check this out. This table is straight from Apple's own support pages, and it's pretty revealing. For almost every single feature they removed, Apple's official advice was basically go use some other, often way more complicated software. That awesome all-in-one, easy-to-use solution? Yeah, that was gone for good. So, what was actually left? Well, the server app, basically went from being this incredible jack of all trades to a very, very specialized tool. It was really only for managing stuff like huge fleets of iPhones and iPads, or these massive storage networks for professional video editing. Super niche. Okay, so with the product pretty much gone, you're probably wondering what happened to all that great technology. Well, as it turns out, the story doesn't quite end there. This date right here was the official end of the line. A product that had been around for more than 20 years was done. It was a pretty big moment in Apple's software history, for sure. But was it really gone? Well, not quite. And this is where the story gets really relevant for every single one of us who uses a Mac today. See, the best parts of the server OS didn't just disappear into thin air. They just moved to a new home. And this slide shows you exactly what happened. All the most useful features, at least for everyday users, they were just pulled right out of the server app and baked directly into the standard macOS. I'm talking about things like file sharing, the caching server that speeds up all your software downloads, and even network backups with Time Machine. All of that stuff is now just a normal part of the operating system that you can just turn on. And that right there is the real legacy of macOS X Server. It's still here, working quietly in the background for millions of us. The absolute best parts of it were made simpler, more reliable, and totally free for everyone. So what does this all mean in the end? The whole story of macOS Server really makes you wonder, doesn't it? It went from this complicated, powerful box of tools for the pros to a set of features that just work invisibly for everybody. And maybe that's a sign of where all of our technology is headed.